Well, it was attached with this link bar. This one's okay, but that is sideways. So unless it's got a pivoting wheel, I think I need a new camshaft. On a roller cam engine, especially one that wasn't made for it originally, the link bar holds the two lifters together, exhaust and intake. Well, these guys roll on the camshaft, really simple. It's just a roller bearing in there. These are solid rollers, so there's no hydraulic action, and then they go up and down as the cam goes. And this link bar keeps them straight so that the wheel is always on the cam surface perpendicular, so it can roll. Well, when this link bar broke, this one turned, instead of going forwards, sideways, and the wheel, instead of rolling on the cam up and down like these were, it turned sideways as the cam rolled across, like if my finger were the cam, and it ran sideways. And then it also broke the finger off, and the needle bearings now dropped in the oil pan, and so is the other part of this, wherever it went. Now I need to cut the oil pan open to get those out, which is even better. Camshaft actually does not look as bad as one would think. Let me see if I can even get a picture of it. You can kind of see down in there. And you see some scoring on it. Yep, some chips. So she's a goner, and thankfully it'll be free. All the shiny things are metal. So every single crease on this entire oil filter is full as expected. Plus we got some nice chunks in here. Oh, and I just cleaned up all the stuff that came out of the oil filter, and I'm draining it into a paper towel, so I'm sure there'll be more in there. It's just a colossal mess. Alright, so I'm sorry I don't have footage for the last part, but I figured that pictures would do the most justice instead of me trying to get still shots of the parts. Plus, everything's kind of in limbo right now. So anyway, I'm sitting at my computer here and just kind of going over my notes. And I'll try to walk you guys through how the motor was built, why it was built, what happened when it happened, and I guess just why I do not recommend, I guess, comp cams here. So, I decided I wanted to build a good, solid motor that would last me a few years. I decided to go with the 351 Windsor base because of the main cap size. I got a 1969 block, which is, any of you Ford guys know, they were the thickest castings you could get in that year. And then from 70 to 1973, they were a slightly less thick, but they had nickel in there. Anything after 73 is pretty much the same, and they're just not as strong. So anyway, I started with a very good engine block, 60 over, not what I wanted, but for the price I couldn't say no, and it'll do perfectly fine since I'm not going to be running anywhere over 700 horsepower, so it wouldn't be an issue in that regard. So anyway, that's why I built the motor. So what's going on in the motor? I decided to get the comp cam solid roller because I definitely wanted a lot of performance out of naturally aspirated. I didn't really want to go hydraulic roller because that's just, I guess it just seemed too typical, and I wanted to have something kind of racy. So naturally I selected a solid roller. So this was built by a local machine shop, race shop, that do all kinds of crazy motors, well over 1,000 horsepower stuff, even naturally aspirated. They have an 1,100 horsepower big block Chevy the other day. So solid roller cams is something they're very familiar with, so it wasn't an issue there. But anyway, on the way down, I checked all their measurements. Since I'm not a noob in this regard, I just wanted it done right so I wouldn't have to tear back into it, even though it's ironic that this is all happening. So first, I checked the end play for the camshaft when it's torqued on. I got 5,000ths. Check with them. They got 4,000ths, and my dial indicator is not even in the same league as theirs. So I figured, that's 1,000th discrepancy is not an issue. Besides, this spec is between 4 and 8,000ths, so not an issue. Spring pressure. Check that. 145 pounds at 1.900 inches, which is exactly what they call for on the camshaft specification. I'm running dual springs, not beehive springs. Running Edelbrock Victor Jr. heads with stainless steel valves. So there's really not a valve stiffness issue, because I know sometimes you can run into that, but certainly not on this motor. There was no issues there. Springs were checked for binding by the machine shop, and they had a whole bunch extra room, so that wasn't an issue. Piston to valve clearance, I have dish pistons, so I have 10.5 to 1 compression, and there was tons of room. Probably, I don't even want to give it a number because I didn't measure it myself, the machine shop did, but since it's a dish piston, room is not an issue. So, trying to think of anything else that we checked. Just countless things, just everything on the way down. Oh, valve lash. I religiously checked this, and it's 16 thou on exhaust, 14 thou on intake, and never had an issue. None of them were ever loose, nothing like that. The engine block was surgically clean when it was built. I was there for a couple different stages of the engine build at the machine shop, and it's amazing how clean they make sure those things are for this very reason, so you don't get something lodged somewhere you don't want it. So anyway, when it happened, I was driving down the road. Believe it or not, I was actually just driving at 60 miles an hour with a friend of mine. We'd just gone to the shooting range and we're coming back, and it started sputtering. I thought I got bad fuel at Casey's, because I did get lower octane at Casey's, thinking I would just turn the timing back if I had an issue. Well, on the way back I did have an issue, and it starts popping and coughing and whatnot, but I still was able to drive. Just it had to be under about I'd say about 1,800 RPM. Anything under that, it'd be perfectly drivable. I didn't like it, but it wasn't knocking or anything. So that was the last. It was cold that day, and it was going to be even colder, so I was just like, I'll put it away for the winter. I'll deal with it in the spring. Well, turns out it wasn't a fuel issue. I tried high octane fuel. I may do a video later on how exactly to determine if your camshaft has failed or what's going on, but I'll just do the quick run through. Put brand new fuel in 93 octane from Shell, which I've always had good luck with. No, didn't fix a thing. Put in race fuel from VP. Didn't help at all. And also, this is all in an auxiliary fuel tank I have, because I was getting ready to run nitrous, which didn't happen because obviously the motor's apart before I could do anything. I had ran it hard. I'm obviously not going to say I didn't, because I definitely ran it hard a few times, but never had an issue. Nothing at all happened. No pinging, no knocking. Nothing out of the ordinary. And then this particular day, I was just driving down the road when it happened. Anything else? Timing chain was, of course, tight. It's brand spanking new, straight from comp. I guess what I'm getting at is it was nothing that we did that caused the problem. So anyway, sent the camshaft back to comp once I talked to their service team. And one thing I'll note is it's never a good thing when you have to wait on hold for an hour for their customer support line. It's probably a red flag in and of itself. But I finally get a hold of these guys, and I give them everything I've done, just like I told you guys, everything that happened. And they say, okay, well, we obviously can't determine it, which I expected. You got to send it in, which I also expected. So, get it all put together, find all the parts I can, because some of it's in the bottom of the motor, and I don't have time to get it, or didn't have time to get it. It's all apart now. So ship it off to them, and they were actually really good about diagnosing the problem. They were really fast. I expected it to be like a month, but within 2 days of receiving it, they looked at it and said that they were gonna refund, or not refund the cam. I wish they were gonna send me new parts. So after all that, I haven't got the cam yet as of making this video, but all the parts are back in the machine shop. The lifter bore is pretty well cooked. I'm hoping the block is salvageable. If not, I'm really gonna be an unhappy camper. So it's just one of the worst experiences ever. I would not recommend. I think their camshafts are fine. I would not ever recommend using a lifter of theirs at all. This is not my first failed camshaft with them. In fact, I had a flat tappet cam that died on me too. That's a whole story in and of itself, but it wasn't a big deal. One of the lobes, I guess, just wore down, and it was probably certainly less than 1,000 miles. I guess I should have got the hint then that, hey, this company's no bueno. But I guess I had to learn the hard way. So if you are looking for solid roller lifters, there's a lot of companies out there that make some good stuff, especially Morel. I've heard a lot of good stuff about them. In terms of what I'm doing to fix it, this is probably going to cost me $1,200 easily, because of what comp has done here, between labor of fixing the engine and all that, not even including all the time it's taking me to pull it apart and put it back together. The short block's getting assembled at that shop again, and they're polishing the crank, all new bearings, doing a wash of the block, because obviously you get all that metal through there, you're going to have to clean it. And then I had no option just because the money is tight. Imagine that, after building a motor, building it again is going to make money tight, right? They offered me for $100 I could get their twice as expensive lifters, which have encaptured link bars and supposedly better everything else, and they're lighter and stuff. So I guess I really had no choice but to choose that, but it's really sad that it had to come to that. It's really unfortunate. There's just nothing you can do, I guess. So in terms of tearing the motor down, what did I find? Well, I'm glad you asked. So the first thing I found was the parts on the bottom of the oil pan. I found the broken off piece, which still had the inner bearing. How do I say this? That the part that keeps the needle bearings in between that and the roller bearing. So with all that I found, I just tried to keep track of what parts I had found and what I hadn't found, and that had pretty much accounted for everything, and I felt pretty good about that. But the engine block is getting cleaned anyway, so I guess it wasn't dire. I just wanted to see what I could find. So once I opened up the bottom end, rod bolts and all that, I didn't find great things. Rod bearings wiped, main bearings wiped, cam bearings wiped. All of it needs, as I mentioned, needed entirely rebuilt. There's just no way around it. Also, I should note the oil pump is probably destroyed as well, but I have to open it up and try to clean it out. As you saw in the filter video, it was just full of metal. It was like pumping sand through the motor. So there's no way to slice it, but it's just bad. And again, if the block is toast, then I am just absolutely in big trouble. So let's just hope that's not it.